Image Anomalies, Curiosity Rover on Earth, Part 3. This presentation is the conclusion of an intriguing investigation that began 7 years ago. This three-part series has brought light to curious anomalies in the raw images posted on NASA's website. For years, conspiracy theorists have claimed seeing odd objects in images of Mars that fueled theories that NASA was hiding signs of ancient alien technology on Mars. Perhaps there is another explanation for what they were seeing. This extraordinary journey now continues with indisputable evidence of the staging of the Curiosity rover on Mars. All images in this presentation are exclusively from NASA and JPL sources. The first image in this study was captured by the mass cam of a Mars rock with an odd loop-shaped formation. The image on the right, taken by the lower front hazard cameras, picked up an interesting detail not seen in the color high-resolution image taken by the mass camera. The odd formation that resembles a strap appears to be looped around a long rectangular object not observed in the color image. This striking image of the Martian surface captured by the mass cam contains a fascinating rock formation. In the left, it's easy to notice a curious long flat line in separation right here, and then it blends in. The image is a true anomaly. Study the enlargement on the right. Where does the rock in the foreground end and the rock formations on the surface begin? This is an excellent example of blending. The close-up color image on the right of Curiosity's wheel motor provides a clear view of a series of screws that are separated by metal dividers. In this position, we can see the 3 screws on the top row. In the black and white image, it is very different. We can observe only the first screw. The other screws appear to be covered by a triangular rock-shaped formation. Then the rock has been blended in with the surface in the background. Here we compare a close-up of the same image from the PDS archives to one from Sol 673 to see how it should appear. Again, we see these 3 screws, but here we only see the first one. This image shows Curiosity's robotic arm extended and exploring the Martian surface. There is a strange object next to the azimuth motor that should not be there. In the highlighted box on the right, there appears 2 long objects. The first object on the right is the MOLLE calibration target, as it's correctly shown in the image on the left. The other object, which appears the numbers 73, is on the left. It should not be there. The clear color image on the right shows how the calibration target should appear, in contrast to the anomalous image on the left. What is this? And where did it come from? In this image from Sol 765, the mass camera is peering down at the equipment deck, and it captures a curious object. In this close-up, we observe a smooth, reflective, white, contoured object that had not been observed before in the raw images and was never seen again. The location of this white object is curious, as the only object that should appear in this location is Curiosity's front left wheel. In this series of images that were taken from a location known as Snake River, where Curiosity explored for 2 weeks, the 3 images show the same section of the Martian surface. The first image, from Sol 159, the area is empty. The next day, a group of rocks appears. They are gone again in the next image 2 days later. In the color image on the right, the perspective is looking down on the top of the turret with the drill. The 2 large drill stabilizers are identified on each side. The left stabilizer rests closely to a solid support bracket. In the black and white image on the left, the turret is slightly tilted, but inexplicably, the left stabilizer has now been threaded through that same box that is no longer solid, and the stabilizer now appears enclosed inside the bracket. In this shadowy image, we are looking down at the robotic arm. The Molly camera is not how it should appear. In the black and white image on the left, the shape of the Molly camera looks odd and is missing significant details. The color image on the right shows the correct way it should appear. It is difficult to distinguish between the camera and the Martian surface in the image on the left. 3 important details are missing in the black and white image. First, it is missing the half-moon shaped protective cover of the camera that we're showing right here. Should be up here. It is also missing the 2 thin metal stabilizers. These right here are not showing. This small white blur that's right here could possibly be the fiducial marker, which is the 3rd remaining detectable difference between the 2. Just below the wrist joint in this image is the site of another object that has been added to the equipment. This image that was presented in Part 2 was highlighted to show how objects are added to the equipment. This time, in a different image, another object has been added to the same group of wires. In this enlargement, we see an interesting white object has been hung from the wires. It does not belong there. The raw images contain hundreds, if not thousands, of anomalies. The PDS Image Atlas, the repository of all NASA's imagery, contains fascinating anomalies. The remaining images presented for review were all acquired from the PDS Image Atlas. We begin with an image that has 2 items that are noteworthy. The first is a small steel dowel pin that is protruding from the Martian surface. In this closer view, we can see the dowel is not a part of Curiosity's equipment, but coming directly out of the surface below. There is a second issue with the image. We need to take a closer look at the robotic arm. When we turn and lighten the image, Curiosity's name cannot be seen on the nameplate. The image on the right is another comparable one where the arm was positioned in a similar angle and the name is easily read. Here is another example of Curiosity's robotic arm extended with clear shadows on a sunny Martian day. However, all is not as it appears. In a closer view, what was originally perceived as a shadow is something else. The equipment is actually resting on a black material that was designed and contoured to trick the viewer into believing it was a shadow. It is not. For further comparison, a second image shown on the right with the turret resting in a similar position and allows the viewer to see how a shadow should appear. The differences between the staged image on the left and the one on the right is clearly shown. This area here where the equipment should actually have a gap, over here it has been filled in with a solid material. Here we are back on Curiosity's equipment deck and observe a tall gray bracket with a long metallic device that ends in two tubes. It doesn't always appear that way. The image on the left is the color one we just viewed, but was converted to black and white to serve as a guide of how the equipment should appear. In the image on the right, from the PDS Image Atlas, it has been creatively altered. The entire unit has been removed and is now coming out from behind. It was removed from this section on and is now coming out behind the equipment. In the closer view, we see where the equipment was removed. Red arrows were shown to see this is the width of this bracket. Now we see even less of it because it is now behind it. This black edge here is the equipment. This image was in the PDS Image Atlas, and its presence there is mystifying. It clearly has nothing to do with Mars or Curiosity. Why would NASA include it in its image archives? Many images in the PDS Atlas are inexplicably colored like this one. Upon closer inspection, we can recognize the same pattern in the odd blue image. It was used as a template to intentionally color the images. We can see this pattern here repeated up here, and this one is over here. What is in these images that NASA wants to hide? Here the color was removed enough to study the image to discover an intriguing anomaly. In the close-up, we observe a metal dowel pin protruding from the Martian surface. Is that what they were trying to distract the viewer from finding by coloring the image? This is the second image from the PDS Image Atlas that contains the silver metal dowel pin. What are the odds of Curiosity capturing this object in two different images in two different parts of Mars? It is important to note that the dowel pin is protruding from the Martian surface, and it is not a part of Curiosity. In another image from the PDS Atlas, we can see a round object on the equipment deck. It is the Radiation Assessment Detector, or RAD for short. Here are 6 images of the RAD starting from Curiosity's second day on Mars through May of 2019. Other than slight color changes, its appearance has been consistent for 8 years. In this image from the PDS Image Atlas, we can observe the RAD, but it appears a little different. When we get up close, it appears something must have scratched the surface of the RAD. It looks almost like handwriting. Part 3 of this presentation has provided detailed analysis of imagery from NASA's raw images that contain irregularities such as equipment manipulated into inconsistent positions, metal dowel pins in the Martian surface just cannot be accounted for as just simple photographic anomalies. This 3-part presentation was the culmination of a 7-year investigation into the authenticity of NASA's raw images. These were but a few of the hundreds of anomalies that have been discovered in those images. The raw images are posted daily on NASA's website for all to see. Few people are aware of their existence, and even fewer study them. They have always been there in plain sight. Are the raw images staged here on Earth? You decide.